Ralph Lauren Summer 2026 Runway, Ivory and Blush Pink that feels like a Parisian dream. Introduction. Welcome to Modern Lady Fashions, where I explore the elegance, emotion, and artistry behind the world's most captivating runway moments. Today, I'm diving into Ralph Lauren Summer 2026, a collection bathed in ivory and blush pink that truly feels like a Parisian dream. I think this show isn't just about clothing, it's about transporting us into a mood, a lifestyle, a fantasy. What I find interesting is how color alone can shape an entire narrative without saying a word. Have you ever seen a collection that instantly made you feel like you were somewhere else? The power of a soft color palette. I think the choice of ivory and blush pink is what makes this collection so emotionally striking. In my experience, softer palettes often create a more lasting impression than bold, loud colors. What I find interesting is how these tones evoke calmness while still feeling luxurious. Unlike darker palettes, they reflect light in a way that feels airy and romantic. That subtle glow becomes part of the storytelling. A Parisian dream aesthetic. I think the Parisian inspiration is unmistakable in this collection. In my experience, designers often reference Paris, but not all capture its essence authentically. What I find interesting is how this collection leans into softness rather than cliché elements. Unlike obvious symbols like berets or stripes, it channels a feeling instead. That makes it feel more genuine and refined. Ralph Lauren's signature elegance. I think Ralph Lauren has always mastered timeless elegance, and this collection reinforces that strength. In my experience, consistency in design philosophy often leads to lasting impact. What I find interesting is how the brand evolves without losing its identity. Unlike trend-driven houses, it builds on a foundation of classic style. That balance is incredibly hard to achieve. fabric that speaks without words. I think the fabrics used in this runway are just as important as the silhouettes. In my experience, materials like silk and chiffon create movement that feels almost poetic. What I find interesting is how texture can communicate emotion visually. Unlike stiff fabrics, these choices bring life to every step on the runway. It's a quiet but powerful detail. The flow of movement. I think movement is one of the most underrated aspects of fashion design. In my experience, a dress that moves beautifully instantly feels more luxurious. What I find interesting is how fluid silhouettes enhance the softness of the color palette. Unlike rigid designs, these pieces feel alive. That sense of motion creates a dreamlike quality. Minimalism meets romance. I think this collection perfectly balances minimalism and romance. In my experience, combining these two elements can be challenging. What I find interesting is how restraint actually enhances the emotional impact. Unlike overly embellished designs, these looks feel intentional and refined. It's proof that simplicity can still be deeply expressive. The role of tailoring. I think tailoring plays a crucial role in grounding the softness of the collection. In my experience, structure prevents delicate designs from feeling too fragile. What I find interesting is how sharp lines contrast beautifully with flowing fabrics. Unlike purely loose silhouettes, this combination creates balance. That balance is what keeps the collection modern. Blush pink as a statement. I think blush pink is often underestimated as a color choice. In my experience, it can feel both subtle and powerful at the same time. What I find interesting is how it adds warmth without overwhelming the look. Unlike brighter pinks, it feels sophisticated and mature. That makes it perfect for this dreamy aesthetic. Ivory and its timeless appeal. I think ivory is one of the most timeless colors in fashion. In my experience, it carries a sense of purity and elegance that never fades. What I find interesting is how it serves as the perfect canvas for design. Unlike stark white, ivory feels softer and more wearable. That subtle difference makes a big impact. Layering and dimension. I think layering is what gives this collection depth. In my experience, combining different fabrics creates visual interest without needing bold patterns. What I find interesting is how layers interact with light and movement. Unlike flat designs, they create a multidimensional effect. It's a technique that elevates simplicity. Modern femininity redefined. I think this collection redefines what modern femininity looks like. In my experience, it moves away from extremes and embraces balance. What I find interesting is how strength and softness coexist in these designs. Unlike outdated stereotypes, femininity here feels nuanced. That makes it more relatable and powerful. The emotional impact of fashion. I think fashion at its best creates an emotional response. In my experience, this collection feels almost cinematic. What I find interesting is how it evokes nostalgia without feeling dated. Unlike purely conceptual designs, it connects on a personal level. That emotional resonance is rare. Daywear versus evening wear. I think the transition between daywear and evening wear is handled beautifully here. In my experience, many collections struggle to maintain cohesion across different looks. What I find interesting is how the color palette ties everything together. Unlike disjointed shows, this one feels unified. That consistency strengthens the overall vision. Accessories that complement. I think accessories in this collection are intentionally understated. In my experience, they enhance rather than compete with the garments. What I find interesting is how minimal accessories keep the focus on the clothing. Unlike overly styled looks, this approach feels refined. It allows the designs to breathe. The influence of lifestyle fashion. I think Ralph Lauren continues to excel at lifestyle storytelling. In my experience, the brand doesn't just sell clothes, it sells a vision. What I find interesting is how this collection invites you into a specific world. Unlike purely artistic shows, it feels wearable and aspirational. That combination is powerful. breaking expectations gently. I think this collection breaks expectations in a subtle way. In my experience, not all innovation needs to be loud. What I find interesting is how small shifts in design create fresh perspectives. Unlike dramatic reinventions, this feels like a natural evolution. That quiet confidence is compelling. Why this collection feels memorable. I think what makes this runway memorable is its emotional consistency. In my experience, the best collections tell a clear story from start to finish. What I find interesting is how every piece contributes to the same mood. Unlike scattered concepts, this feels intentional. That unity leaves a lasting impression. A personal reflection on style. I think this collection reminds me of the power of subtlety in personal style. In my experience, the most elegant looks are often the simplest. What I find interesting is how restraint can feel more luxurious than excess. Unlike chasing trends, this approach feels timeless. It's something I always come back to. Conclusion. I think Ralph Lauren Summer 2026 captures a rare balance of elegance, emotion, and modernity through its ivory and blush pink dreamscape. In my experience, collections like this stay with you long after the runway ends. What I find interesting is how it proves that softness can be just as powerful as boldness. So, would you embrace this Parisian-inspired elegance in your own wardrobe? If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe to Modern Lady Fashions for more runway insights and timeless style inspiration.